We're going to talk aliens this hour because of comments made by Barack Obama. The former US president said this.
Are aliens real?
They're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in, what is it?
Area 51?
Area 51. There's no underground facility unless there's this enormous conspiracy and they hid it from the President of the United States.
And it's not just former President Obama. Current President Donald Trump a couple of years ago said this.
I've met with pilots. Sir, there was something there that was round in form and going like 4 times faster than my super jet fighter plane. And I look at these guys and they really mean it.
Yeah.
And am I a believer? No, I can't say I am.
Former US President Barack Obama has now clarified that the chances Earth has been visited by aliens is low after the comments with which we played you just a moment ago that he made about extraterrestrial species catching attention online. He said, and you heard it there, they're real, but I haven't seen them, telling Brian Tyler Cohen, the podcast host, during an interview published on Saturday. He since said his comments were made in line with the spirit of the speed round of questions, adding that statistically the chances are that life is out there, but he saw no evidence while he was president. His initial comments were made during a quick-fire lightning round of questions where he was asked, are aliens real? He's now said, since it's gotten attention, let me clarify, statistically the universe is so vast that the odds are good that there's life out there. But the distances between solar systems are so great that the chances we've been visited by aliens is low. And I saw no evidence during my presidency that extraterrestrials have made contact with us, really. Few things to talk about this hour. Why? I mean, US presidents have constantly, in interviews, they sort of shy away. Barack Obama had a sort of glint in his eye when he was talking about this. They sort of like, I think, winding people up to an extent. Let's bring into the conversation. Always enjoy speaking with Nick Pope, who's the former Ministry of Defence official. He ran the MOD's division investigating UFO sightings in the 1990s. Starting with your previous work, Nick Pope, thank you for joining us. You never found any in the 1990s?
Sadly, no, but we did certainly have some interesting cases. Most of these things were misidentifications, a few hoaxes, aircraft lights, weather balloons, satellites, that sort of thing. But around 5% defied conventional explanation. And we often saw, for example, pilots encountering these things simultaneously tracked on radar, speeds, maneuvers and acceleration way beyond the cutting edge of our own aerospace tech. So we didn't rule out the extraterrestrial hypothesis for some of this, and in a sense we couldn't.
It's interesting you said about pilots there. I don't know if you heard the clip of Donald Trump talking about it, where he was citing people who obviously see vastly different sort of landscapes and things than I do and most people do, and that they were seeing things they struggled to explain. And so when it's anecdotal experience like that from very trustworthy people, it's difficult to have a sort of argument with, isn't it?
It very much so, particularly when it's corroborated not just by radar evidence, but nowadays by forward-looking infrared cameras that are mounted on some of these military jets that have been involved in these encounters, and indeed satellite data, although most of that, in fact all of that I believe, is still classified. But I know that a number of pilots have gone in to brief President Trump about this. And this is just part of a wider engagement with the US government is having on this subject at the moment. Everything from hearings in Congress to UFO provisions in the annual defense bill.
Talk us through Area 51, because this is obviously much spoken about. It's this area in Nevada, isn't it, where it's said that it's sort of top secret and that's where the aliens are kept. What is the sort of conspiracy or the thoughts behind that among some?
Well, Area 51 absolutely exists, 100%. It's where the United States developed and flew some of the iconic aerospace platforms, the SR-71 Blackbird, the U-2 spy plane, more recently stealth fighters, stealth bombers, and nowadays things you won't see for 20 years. Conspiracy theorists say it goes further than that, and there's a sort of, story within a story, so to speak, and that this is where crashed UFOs from places like Roswell, where it's alleged something came down in 47, are being reverse engineered as scientists and engineers try and figure out what these things are and whether we can build them ourselves. I don't know whether that's true or not, but it's a long-held belief in many parts of the community.
If we focus on President Obama's comments, or the initial comments, or even what he said subsequently, what do you make of it, what he's had to say?
It was really interesting. And in fact, the follow-up comment was much more interesting, I thought, than the original. The original, of course, as you played, the question was, are they real? And he said, they're real. And that, of course, started a sort of media firestorm. Now, presidents do these sorts of interviews all the time. Quick-fire questions. They're used to fielding inquiries from heavy-hitting A-listers when it comes to broadcasting. So it was very unusual, I thought, that a former two-term president of the United States felt the need to circle back on something he said on a YouTube podcast and say, oh, by the way, when I said they're real, all I was really meaning was that with the vastness of the universe, we're probably not alone. And that kind of got me a little bit suspicious. It's almost like he knew or was told that he'd said too much and hey, come on, walk this back.
You wonder if someone said something to him and said, come on, you know the drill, maybe clarify a little bit.
Well, I think every incoming president must get a briefing on this. And in fact, through interviews, we know it's pretty much the first question they ask anyway.
Bill Clinton famously said, didn't he, that he was one of the first things he looked at and then realised he couldn't find anything.
Yeah, he said when Clinton got in, he said, I wanted to know two things: who killed JFK and where are the aliens?
Yeah.
So every president either gets a brief or asks for a brief, and I'm sure Obama was no exception, and I'm sure Trump is no exception. So perhaps there's a little, if there is a smoking gun here, perhaps there's a little bit of a dogfight going on, and perhaps the current administration has said, hey, wind your neck in, this is for the sitting president to announce, not a former president.
Could I ask you the $1 million question? Do you think aliens are real?
Well, now I'm going to fall into the kind of trap of answering like Obama. Aliens out there, 100%. Aliens visiting us down here, I don't know, 50-50. I mean, I think it's a coin toss sometimes. Some of the things I've seen, some of the things I've heard, in some of these testimonies before Congress, and that's setting aside the fact that some of the most juicy stuff, of course, has been done in classified briefings to Congress that nobody's heard about except those people in the room.